Astronauts to the moon.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage.
What's going on, everyone? It's Chairnism, back with another video for you today. I have a ton of projects that I'm currently working on, but I had to stop and report on something important. The other stories can wait. This needs to be said. First, and I mean this, let me warn you that viewer discretion is highly advised. This video is not suitable for underage viewers. Please make sure that you have no problem at all with adult content. There will be lots of foul language, as well as descriptions of sexual acts in detail, so trust me when I say viewer discretion is advised. Okay, you still here? Well then, let's begin. First up, you may have recently seen that Brian Colin, actor, comedian, and podcaster, was a bit upset about the flat earth idea hitting mainstream. Let's see how well he handled it.
Granted, they're not going anywhere.
If you're getting your ideas of what the Earth, the shape of the Earth, from somebody who's a basketball player and not Neil deGrasse Tyson or something like that, then good for you. And you go ahead and listen to Kyrie. And
but B, that's not fair. You don't know. Maybe he did listen to those guys, and maybe he listened to someone that he thinks is legit, or because there's other researchers.
Sir. Let me tell you something right now. There's zero argument for the Earth being flat.
I agree.
So
me and you are on the same here.
Yeah.
But let's say he listened to Neil deGrasse Tyson, and then some other, because there are some researchers who do, for whatever reason, think the world's
they're not
flat.
researchers, they're idiots. But yeah,
I hear you. But they're scientists.
Yeah, but if Kyrie Irving believes that, then that part of his brain is dead, and he's a dumb.
I hear you.
So go ahead and keep your eye on Brian. He's the one on the right, in case you didn't know that. And watch his nervous tics. Like right now, he's grabbing his arm and his shirt. And just keep an eye on that, as he totally is triggered and gets very angry very quick.
Yeah, but B, you're not a scientist. So when
No, I'm not.
So why should
No, I'm
anyone
not,
listen?
Brennan.
You're not a historian either.
Definitely
You're
don't
not a
listen to
historian
me.
either.
Definitely don't listen to me, my friend. But
we do.
But because
you can't just say if you're not a historian.
No, this is
or
very.
a
No, this is very.
That's what you just said.
This is a very important distinction. This is a very important distinction. Excuse me. When all of the science, when I'm an educated guy who's been alive for 50 years, and there's no scientist, and I mean there's no one who has been alive, who is even a writer, who is a scientist,
that's not true.
who is an astronaut, who works at NASA, who would ever say that the Earth is flat. We put that to rest.
Scientist.
We put that to rest. Even when Christopher Columbus was alive, most people who are educated knew the Earth was not flat. We put this to rest.
I'm with you, brother.
So when
all
you
our
say,
listeners, I'd say 99% of our listeners are
when
with
you say
you.
I don't know, you're putting me on the same level as that moron. You can't do that.
I can do that.
No, you cannot do that.
Just because
my
you read
opinion
it
is
from someone
informed.
else. How do you know him? You do not know him. You do not know what he researched.
Brendan Schaub. When an idiot says that the Earth is flat, he's an idiot. Because he's saying the Earth is flat, and that's
from his opinion, though.
His opinion is idiotic, Brendan.
When it comes to the Earth, I'm not defending him.
But you are defending him.
I'm not.
Don't put him on the same level. Let me talk. This is very important.
That's all you've been doing.
Let me talk. No, you've been talking the whole podcast. Let me talk.
Why are you so upset? Why are you so
because I'm
defensive?
tired of this bullshit. Let me talk.
Why are you so upset? Why are you so
because I'm
defensive?
tired of this bullshit. I am tired of this Alex Jones stuff. I am so sick and tired of all these people with all their misinformed points of view, where they are just completely bucking eons of history and knowledge that's been earned. There is scientific knowledge, like vaccines, antibiotics, like the Earth being round. These things have been earned over hundreds of years. And by the way, we all benefit every single day from science that has been earned, that has been experimented on, that has been proved. And all of a sudden with the internet, you have these cuckoo birds who come out and start talking about the Earth being flat. They start coming out and talking about how there are these giant rings of globalist pedophiles who are controlling the strings, and this virtuous guy named Donald Trump is coming along and saving the day.
So, not just Flat Earth on Brian's hate list, he also seems to think Pizzagate is totally impossible. So now we'll be watching Eddie Bravo, who is on board. He sees the truth in many conspiracies, and he'll be holding his own quite well against Brendan Schwab, who actually has never heard of Pizzagate, Joe Rogan, who's someone stuck in the middle, and Brian Colin, who, if you watch his face and his mannerisms carefully, gets almost sick over the idea of Pizzagate existing at all. So instead of researching it and looking into whether any truth lies behind the accusations, Brian just thinks we all need to stop talking about it because it's fake news. I wonder who he got that from.
Oh, I'd
Are you
love to
guys
hear it, Eddie.
are you familiar with it?
Pizzagate?
Yes.
No, but sounds
you know-
dope.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I do.
You know
but
what
I've
that
never
is?
heard of it. Please
Yes, I
explain
do.
to me.
So-
I'm not going to explain it. I'm not even going to get into it, but
It's
all I'm
such
going to
bullshit,
say.
Eddie. Before you go into it,
Pizzagate?
it's been debunked. It's the biggest bunch of
been-
bullshit.
been debunked?
Dude,
Oh, hell no.
Eddie,
Oh, my
it's the
God.
biggest. It's fake news. They
Fake?
proved it's fake news.
You're so
and
on
if you
that
believe
side.
that,
You're so
it's
on that
ridiculous.
side.
It's
You're
the big. So the Democratic, the power structure in the Democratic Party are pedophiles, and they all communicate with each other with those secret paddles. Is this what we're going to go
We're
into?
gonna pop off like this? We're
Look
gonna
at
kick
me.
the
Look at me,
community
Eddie.
off like this?
It was proven to be a horseshit story. If you buy into it, the joke is on you. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Wow.
I'm telling you.
Unbelievable,
Did you hear
Brian.
what? That's very unbelievable. It's
Unbelievable.
incredible.
So what is the so are you saying what? Are you saying that the power
Listen,
structure
you know
are
what?
pedophiles?
This is what I'm saying.
Come on.
This is what I'm.
This is ridiculous.
what?
But hold on a second.
This is what I'm saying. That shit's real now.
It's a fake
And-
news story, Eddie.
Dude,
It's
you
a fake
are-
news story. Every credible news organization's
Like
editorial
who?
board went,
What,
it's
CNN?
all bullshit.
CNN?
Like, I don't know.
Washington
let's
Post?
call
Where do you get your
Shore
news, Brian?
Or the
Where do
New
you
York
get your
Times
news,
or the
Brian?
Economist. Take both sides. Take the right and the left. It's a joke. It was a joke.
Wow.
It
All
was
I
a
gotta
joke.
say is wow.
So Eddie, so the power structure.
You think it's a joke?
Eddie,
Too
the
much.
power structure are all pedophiles? What are you talking about?
Hey,
What are you talking about?
That's what I'm talking about.
Man love. So the power
Hey, listen,
the power
listen,
structure
listen,
are
Brian's
coming in.
pedophiles.
Brian's
It's a
coming in.
joke.
Brian,
It's
have
a
you-
joke.
Have you seen the
I-
documentary Conspiracy of Silence? Have you seen that?
Sure haven't, buddy.
You still, of course you
Sure haven't. I don't get my
'Cause
news
you're so
from
far on the other
YouTube.
side.
I don't get my news from YouTube. I get my news from
CNN?
credible,
Washington Post?
credible news organizations.
Joe, talk to
from
this guy.
independent lines of inquiry.
Hey, Joe, can you do me a favor since
Okay,
I'm outside?
Brandon Shaw.
What is Pizzagate?
Okay,
In layman
Pizzagate
terms.
is there's a guy who worked for Hillary Clinton's campaign, and his name is Podesta, right? John Podesta, that's his name. There's some pizza restaurant in is it in D.C.? Is that where it's
I
at?
believe it's in
There's two of
Washington.
them. Comet Ping Pong and Besta Pizza.
Like
Well, it's two ping
bizarre
pong paddles,
art.
which is close to the man love.
Is that all it is?
organizations.
What about those paintings? There
Man loves okay?
No, I'm
no.
not-
He's not saying. He's just saying it's
No.
just also.
So it's a
happened to be two
pizza
ping pong
restaurant with
paddles.
some paintings on the wall.
But Brian, what are the paintings that they're being accused of having?
So the
there's
man
some
love. So the
strange-
man love.
No, but not
has-
that. Not
yeah.
the symbol. There's
Right.
there's some paintings that were connected to. Do you know what I'm talking about? There was some like very bizarre. It disturbed the shit out of me so much. I said I don't want to spend any time looking at this. You know what I know for sure though? For sure, 100%. That Speaker of the House guy, Dennis Hassert,
Yeah.
that got put away for like 15 months
Yeah.
for being an admitted child molester.
That's
Right.
The idea that you could only get, and the idea that this guy was the Speaker of the House.
Yikes.
He was the Speaker of the House, and he was fucking kids when he was a wrestling coach.
And eating
Yeah.
pizza?
No, this is a different guy.
Well, that was
I'm
statute
just
of
trying to tie
limitations.
everything around.
I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because he's old and he's very sick and ill, but
Yeah.
it means nothing to me. The idea that you could get an admitted kid fucker and you only give him 15 months.
That's shady.
There's more to the story. I can't
I'm sure
remember
there
what it was.
is. I'm sure there is more to the story, but the facts remain that guy got a very short sentence and was the Speaker of the
Eddie,
House
can you convince me
and
of
was a
Pizzagate?
child molester.
I don't
mean,
want
he
to.
really 100% was a child molester.
Yeah, but there are always going to be pedophiles in that
Right,
group.
but instead of having
Clearly, Brian Callen is very bothered by this story. He said it's been debunked, that it's a joke, it's been disproven, and it's a fake news story. But let's listen again to what he says here, because even after he has claimed that it's a garbage story, he says, right after Joe has finished talking about Dennis Hastert, that there will always be pedophiles in that group.
House
Can you convince
and
me of
was a
Pizzagate?
child molester.
I don't
mean,
want
he
to.
really 100% was a
No
child
thing.
molester.
yeah, but there are always going to be pedophiles in that
Right,
group.
but instead of having
It's
this
scary.
like gigantic blanket
there are always going to be pedophiles in that
right,
group.
but instead of having
It's
this
scary.
like gigantic blanket attitude that what he's saying is ridiculous and then getting super emotional about it, let's just look at the actual fact that a guy who was a pedophile was the Speaker of the House.
has nothing to do with the story.
You're right, it doesn't. But to mock the idea that people who are pedophiles can't get to high positions of power was exactly what you were doing.
Now, hopefully you can see the obvious fact that this is affecting him on a very strange level. Keep an eye on him and tell me if the way he's acting is simply because he doesn't want the show to discuss fake stories, he wants to discuss real stories, or is there something deeper here?
People who are pedophiles can't get to high positions of power was exactly what you were doing.
It's not at all what I was
Were
doing.
you getting real emotional
because
about
I was
it?
getting emotional because this story was proven through many independent lines of inquiry
I believe
to be to be literally a hoax. And when you give it a voice, when it's a hoax, and you know, these people look at it way closer than anybody at this table. It's not about the conspiracy theory here. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say, guys, hold on. This was a big hoax, and so many different people who looked at it who they don't have an agenda. They looked into it and they went, whoa, what's going on?
So it's a fake story by one of those fake
story,
news
man.
sites.
Yeah, so we have to be very careful. Do we really want to spend time on fake stories? Let's talk about real stories.
Let me establish where I am. I know the very brief outline of what it's all about. I know that a lot of people think they're pedophiles and crazy and Satan worshipers, and there was some spirit cooking thing, some bizarre thing that was released in an email about something that Podesta was going to get into.
And that's true, right?
Yeah, apparently that's true, but it's like to get super emotional and say it's impossible. Like, I don't necessarily think it is impossible if that Speaker of the House guy was in place.
This story, in particular, Pizzagate.
You just got to look into it.
I know zero about it, but let me.
That's what I'm
from
saying.
Where I am, I looked into it very little. I saw it was. I'm like, I'm gonna just let this scuffle go on, and then look into it when the dust settles in a couple weeks.
That's usually smart.
Yeah, that's scared. That's
figure out exactly what it is, whether it's bullshit or real.
It made me looking into it made me want to shut the fuck up about conspiracy theories because people get killed
God damn,
with this
Doug.
shit. When you actually look into it, and I like Brian Callen, when you actually look into it with an open fucking mind.
Yes.
You just trust the government on everything.
God damn it, Brian.
Like,
I trust the government. I don't trust the
dude,
government.
you need to be a politician, bro.
Eddie, you have
really, you would
Pizzagate.
love that shit.
Some weird. First of all, that Podesta guy's like really into UFOs too.
I know.
There's smoke. There's fire.
Wait, guys. No, I'm sorry. I have to stop.
Isn't Podesta
Hold
really
on,
into UFOs?
Hold on. I don't believe so.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
I don't care about that. But
might
can
be
I,
into
may
UFOs,
I,
and you just stormtrooped over that.
You're telling me the
man.
truth is something in the middle. What I'm saying is I'm reacting to what I had read from credible sources
Okay,
as
I
being
wish you could
a fake.
cite what it said
You can't
and what
cite
the
it.
I
issue
actually
was.
have the article.
Okay, cool.
On my phone.
Pull it up.
Yeah, all I got to say is I don't even want to get into it, but all you need to do is go to YouTube and watch the Conspiracy of Silence. It's a documentary.
How long is it?
It was supposed to be on the BBC, but they never aired it.
Who made it?
Your mother, Kellen.
No, who made it? It's important, right?
No, it's not.
It's not?
No, Disney made it. How about that?
But Eddie,
Would
don't
you believe
need
it
to,
if Disney
here,
made
here,
it?
What the hell is Pizzagate? Here it is, Jamie. I'm going to give this to you. Hold on. Hold, please,
Just tell
everyone.
him what it is, and he'll get it online. He has
I
a
got to
computer
show
as
him.
well.
Fair
Dude,
characterization.
you're always on the
It's not
official
true.
story side,
Eddie,
dude. You're one of those
Eddie,
guys.
Eddie.
You're one of those guys. You're always.
I read
You are-
credible
these two
news
came in
sources.
hot.
Washington
credible,
Post,
not just
CNN,
Washington Post. I mean, not just
New York Times.
No, I read
New York
The
Times,
Economist, which is
Washington
the
Post.
second oldest magazine in the world.
You read all the
Do you know how-
propaganda.
do
You read
know
all the
how-
bullshit.
Do you know how those editorial boards work?
You study the bullshit.
Eddie, do you know how those editorial boards work? Do you know? Do you really think that the entire editorial board of the New York Times or the Economist or the Wall Street Journal, where people who run the country and the world get their information, do you think all those people are lying, getting together, and being conspiratorial to give us fake news? And for what? Is that really what you believe?
That's exactly. It's been proven. They spent $500 million. It's
Eddie,
put up
answer
the YouTube.
my questions.
The Pentagon
do you believe
said-
that? Do
Yeah,
you believe
I
it?
do believe
So
it.
everything
I
that the
do.
New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Economist reports
Not
is a
everything.
lie?
Not everything.
Then what, though?
Just the agenda.
Why?
Just getting the agenda.
Why?
You know what Agenda 21 is?
I don't, Eddie, but I
Do
want you
what,
to tell me
you know
why.
what the New World Order is?
I don't, but
Do you know what? Of course you don't.
because you think a
Of
small
course
group
you
of people
don't.
are controlling everything, like the world economy or the
Of
oil
course.
markets. How? Do you know how oil is priced? Do you know how oil is priced, Joe?
Man, you
So what-
you
what-
are so far on the other goddamn side. There's
Isn't it
you're
possible
one of
that
those
the
dudes.
truth's in the middle there somewhere?
No,
that they
you're
do
one of
some
those
controlling?
dudes.
You all right?
It's not possible.
No, but it's got a good
Look into
top game.
Operation Mockingbird. You're
Strong.
Where can I look that up?
anywhere.
What do you
At the
mean?
library.
But can I
At
look
the
that up?
library.
Those are not real,
The
bro.
library won't
Operation
have it.
Mockingbird. Show it up, Jamie.
Why do you believe?
Operation Mock-
Wait,
do you know
wait,
what Operation
why
Mockingbird
do
is?
you believe in all these conspiracy theories? Like
It's not, Operation Mockingbird is not a conspiracy
Wait.
theory. That's not a conspiracy
what
theory.
is,
Why do you
Operation-
believe
well,
a
let's-
documentary on YouTube over The Economist? Why would you believe? And you don't even know who made it, but you believe in a documentary versus.
You're talking about some shit you've never seen. Just because it's on YouTube, it's like, it's not real, it's on YouTube.
Well,
you don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Well,
You're talking about some documentary there. You believe that documentary. You don't even know what it is. You believe that? How could you believe
no,
that?
I'm
You don't
asking
even know what it
hold on,
is.
I'm asking why
You've never
believe
even
it.
seen it.
Why do you believe
Well,
it?
but
Because
hold on,
I've seen
but
it,
Brian,
and I've seen people talk.
We
and
don't- we
and
don't-
there's evidence. I see the evidence. I don't read about it. I see
Can
the
I
evidence.
step in as both of your friends?
You had me at Pizzagate.
Yeah.
I want to know what it was.
And then
But
I
I
went
just
off.
wanted to say, because a lot of people on the internet want me to bring that shit up, and I'm like, I really don't want to bring it up. That's some scary shit. When you really look into it, shit that you've never done, when you actually look into it, when you look into it,
We're almost out.
doesn't
We're
even know.
almost out.
Operation Mockingbird is a CIA operation where they were to prevent and control communism infiltration. They thought it would be best to buy up as many different broadcasting companies, and they wanted to own the media. They wanted magazines, newspapers. CNN is part of that shit. Anderson Cooper is admitted a CIA agent. He admits it. He goes, yeah, I was in the CIA, so what?
Anderson Cooper?
Well, he actually worked for them like when he was in college. Is that what it was?
Dude, when you're
He
in
did
your
an internship or something like that?
Dude,
Yeah,
you
it's
don't
totally
have to go to the
possible.
CIA college to be a CIA agent.
No,
they
no,
make
I think
random
while
dudes
he was-
internationally CIA agents.
Anderson
and
Cooper,
assets.
look at me. Anderson Cooper's not a CIA agent.
He could be.
Look into it.
Guys,
Look
He
into
worked
it.
for the CIA.
Look, CIA had
tell you something.
Operation Mockingbird. We're
Let's
going to control the
pretend-
media. You buy into the
And this is where things start to get interesting. You have Brian Callen saying that this is a fake story and it's been debunked, but yet he's never seen Conspiracy of Silence. Link is in the description. He doesn't know anything about Agenda 21. He doesn't know about the New World Order. He doesn't know anything about Operation Mockingbird. He's never heard of Project MKUltra, which ran for 23 years officially. That doesn't even count what they kept on doing. You know, research in 80 or 90 different institutions in 45 different universities and more hospitals and prisons and pharmaceutical companies. All that. And then to just say, look at me, Anderson Cooper is not CIA, when it's already been admitted. Here's a little document saying, following his sophomore and junior years at Yale, a well-known recruiting ground for CIA, Cooper spent his summers interning at the agency's monolithic headquarters in Langley, Virginia, in a program for students interested in intelligence work. His involvement with the agency ended there, and he chose not to pursue a job with the agency after graduation, according to a CNN spokeswoman who confirmed details of Cooper's CIA involvement to Radar. And then there's another source from Mike.com, where in 2006, Cooper admitted to working for the CIA, basically saying that he only worked there as an intern during summers and didn't get to see anything, but I hope people are smart enough to realize, of course, they would say that even if he worked with the CIA. Correct? Alright, now things are about to get interesting. So first of all, we've seen how Brian Callen kind of loses it, almost to tears really, when he's confronted with, well, first Flat Earth, but actually it was Pizzagate that really got under his skin. Now admittedly, I didn't know this guy till about a week or two ago, but I do enjoy stand-up comedy. And when I saw him, I remembered his comedy and that it was weird. Almost all of it is like overly sexual, but in a weird way. And you can judge for yourself here with these two clips.
Being a straight man is another thing that I find very difficult in some ways. There's just certain things as a man, straight man, I can't do. I'm realizing I can't be too expressive with my body. I can't do, I don't even know what that is. I just know I can't pose for a picture. I can't come out of a body of water like this. I can't frolic through wheat. I was thinking about that the other day. I can never just forget my troubles and just run through a wheat field like that. I can't do that. I can't even run through a wheat field and drag my hand behind me like that. There's not written anywhere. I just know somehow that's suspect. I'll never know what the top of wheat feels like. It sucks. A lot of it's in the hands. A lot of it's very, if you're too expressive, we're so homophobic. Like if I'm a cop and I'm like, stop. I work out, but no matter what, I never get, it's funny. I just realize I'm not built for war, for fighting. I'm built for dance. Like I have a... I know. Look at the vulnerability in my eyes. I'm like, I've never taken dance, but look at the precision of my movements. My spinal cord's made of rope. It's ridiculous. It's funny too because I would love to have been a dancer, but I'm straight, so it's complicated. It is. We're so homophobic. You're not allowed as a dancer. I could never, as a straight man, I could never pop my, I couldn't do that move without answering a bunch of questions. You ever notice that? There's a lot of. It's funny being a straight guy because it's hard being a straight guy. When you dance, for example, you got to keep your arms bent. That's the rule. This is right here. This is it. One hand can go up, you can go low, but you must default here in case you got to keep somebody away. I don't know. You can never. Think about it. I travel everywhere. This is a rule. You can never, as a straight man, you can never, ever straighten your arms. The minute you straighten your arm.
So you can judge for yourself on that one. There are a lot more clips on YouTube, so if you want to check him out, go ahead and do that. At times, he certainly comes across as a little awkward and definitely overconfident. Let's watch here as he pisses off Joe and Brendan with just the wrong choice of words.
You know what happened to me? I got bullied for a full year, and it turned me into a fucking. If somebody tried to bully me, I'll show up at your fucking house and kill you. That's what happens. I get so angry.
I'm not buying that even remotely.
I hate when
Hey,
it's
bro,
not true.
You fucking bully me.
You know what
you
your
try
problem
bullying me
is,
right
bro?
now,
You know what your
motherfucker.
problem is?
Hold on, let me handle
Here's
this.
the problem. Here's the problem. You've talked to too many guys that let you say shit like that, and then it becomes like vernacular.
No,
It becomes like a
this
part
is
of
what I
you
do.
talk.
This is what I do. Brian, look at
All those
look at me.
people that I know, all those
he's got
people
something to say.
that when I first met you, all those
Yeah.
people you used to hang around with,
Yeah.
those are all toxic, and they've ruined the way you're allowed to communicate with people.
No, it's true.
Because they
No.
said stupid shit, and then you said
If
stupid shit,
somebody
and it was
fucks
okay.
with me, bro, look at how many. What do you have to say to me?
Bro, I watched a scary movie with him.
I'm gonna have to shut this podcast
Not
off.
yet.
Run
Not yet.
away.
We have to. Hold on.
I
Not
watched
yet.
a scary movie with him, and it was the most annoying thing ever.
Tell you what,
he
I
goes,
would fuck
"Oh,
this
I
guy up."
fucking wish a demon would grab me, man. You know what I would do?" And I'm like,
I get mad.
Why are you talking to me
It's
like
not
this?
that you get mad. It's that you hang around with people for a long time. You hung around with people that allowed you to talk like that.
No.
Without mocking you.
Who aren't tough. Who aren't tough.
Bros, listen up. I will fuck some. You bully me, bro. I don't give a shit about your UFC bullshit. I will fucking come right at you.
I could pin you on the ground right now and put my
You could
dick in your
try.
mouth.
You could
for
try.
no reason.
You could try. And guess
Just
what?
because it's the nice
Guess what?
Saturday
I would
morning.
fucking come right to your house. Bang, bang,
No,
bang.
you'd be dead.
Joe.
Would I?
Yep.
He needs friends like us because he gets
Yeah.
around saying that with guys who don't know.
Well,
can't
he
wait to
hangs
box
around
today.
with
I
a
can't wait.
lot of idiots.
Now, things are going to get even more interesting here. You might have seen the show or heard of The Secret Life of an American Teenager. In that show, he plays the father who is abusive to both his son and wife. He eventually goes to prison on the show, but when he gets out, he actually tries to get his son to sell his baby for drug money to a quote-unquote nice couple, aka human trafficking. Then, getting back to reality now, things are about to get even more weird, because Brian Colin has been molested. Not once, but what seems to be a few times. This brings up so many questions, and we will begin to add them all up shortly. So we will now listen to a few stories, and while I certainly have my ideas, I'm interested in what you guys think. So let's listen in and see if we can figure out just who is Brian Colin.
I went to
your
camp
hand.
out there. I got molested.
Did you?
Yes.
What happened? Oh, you talked about
I
this.
know, it
You
doesn't
didn't tell
matter.
this story on the podcast?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. It wasn't. I mean,
Doesn't
molested
matter. What
was.
are you, a girl? You gonna tell us a story?
Yeah, dude.
No, it
Well,
doesn't matter.
tell the story though. Didn't he?
Well,
didn't,
yeah,
like
I woke
Officer
up-
Greg suck your dick? So
Well, no, I
Someone
woke
sucked
up.
your dick?
I woke up with
Yeah.
Dan. His name was with a fistful of my dong, and I
Fistful?
and I had a morning boy hard on, and I was like, "What's going on?" And he was like doing this. I was like, "I do this usually. Why is he doing this?" I remember going, "I do this. Why is he doing?" I didn't occur to me. So I go to my buddy Donnie. I
old were you
go,
at
probably 11, and I go to my buddy Donnie. I go, "Hey man, this guy, you know me." I'm like, "This guy Dan was playing with my dick." And my buddy John goes, "He's playing with my dick too." And Donnie goes, "He sucked mine." And I go, "I'm telling my mom." So I waited like a little tiger in the
He
tall grass.
sucked mine.
Yep.
Donnie got his dick sucked.
Yeah,
Let's get
yeah.
it done repeatedly.
He wasn't like
Real
a
quick,
violent-
Callan got molested as a kid.
Sure did. Wasn't a violent guy. He was probably a guy who he had a beard. I remember with a bald head, terribly athletic, not athletic at all. I threw a ball at him and he clapped like he was clapping at a bug. And then he just loved boys. And I went and told my mom.
What'd you
I
tell your
waited.
mom? How'd you tell your mom?
Well, my mom wasn't there, so she didn't come for about 2 weeks. And he kept asking me why I wasn't going on more trips because I was just taken. I was like not signing up for any more canoe
Was it
trips.
just that one time? Because you were there for 2 weeks.
It was
Did you
just
get your dick sucked
no.
by
I was
Greg?
there for longer than that. I was in camp for 2 months, I believe.
Did he suck your dick?
No, he never sucked my dick.
How
Just
close did he
Donnie's.
get to it?
He just had. Well, he was.
was hard.
We were all in the tent. It was probably me and like a couple of guys, and he had his hand in my sleeping bag, playing with my little wiener.
Give me like a jiu-jitsu position. Does he have you in side control?
Nope, I'm lying next to him.
Is
You're
he
lying
ski
next to him.
poling?
And he's looking.
Ski poling.
He's
Because
looking.
tents are small, bro.
Yeah.
There's 3 kids. He's probably like this. 2
Oh,
fistfuls
yeah, maybe.
sucking Dunny off.
Well, I know that I was looking.
You were in a threesome with Donnie.
I was looking. I'd woken up
This
like
is
this.
weird.
I was in a threesome probably.
Probably.
And
This explains so much.
I know.
Why are you fucking rubbing your head? That's got to be an internet meme. This explains so much.
so much.
Callan was molested.
I was molested.
I don't know. It's fucked up to laugh, man.
Why are you laughing at that? That's so
And there's a
rude.
big difference between being molested and then being fucked. And so, you know, for me, and
He's
I knew
minorly
that.
molested.
You're crazy if you don't
Yeah.
think Donnie was fucking him too.
No, I think Donnie.
We need to
Donnie didn't
reach
want,
out to Donnie.
didn't want me to tell anybody, and I was like, I'm telling my mom.
I almost got molested by Strokes.
Well, no, I remember I met an older dude, and we were. He was a cool guy. We hung out.
That's how it starts.
I always starts with older dude. We were in Wisconsin.
In a sweatsuit.
We're in Wisconsin, the North Woods of Wisconsin, summertime. And I remember I meet this guy, and there was this girl there. Oh, 2 girls, older. And we were like,
How
oh,
old
we
are
were,
they?
I don't know, who cares? Let's say
40s?
13 or something
Oh,
like that.
Jesus.
14. It was so hot, and I was
How old were
11,
you?
11, 10, something
Oh, they're
young.
not that
Even
old.
younger. Because I'll tell you why I know I was younger. So I'm hanging out with this guy, and
old is he?
we keep. And I was such a little pervert.
How old is he?
let's. Well, I
a
don't
grown
know,
man?
but I'm going to tell you how I know he was a lot older. Ready? This is how. This is why I'm. This is the point. So. We start. I actually say we should try to have sex with those girls. I'm trying to conspire. I don't know how old I was, or at least I was like, we should try to see their boobs. I don't know what I was saying to him. He goes, yes, that's a great plan. So we're talking. He goes, come, we have to go to the woods and come up with a plan. So I'm like,
no.
yeah. So I'm like, all right. So we go to the woods.
God damn it! No wonder you've been molested several times.
The next thing I know, this is coming to me now. The next thing I know, he pulls his pants down, and I notice how hairy his ass is. So I go, that's weird. There's this dick in his ass, and he lies down, and he goes, do you want to rub on top of me or no? And I go, I don't think so. I was like,
rub on top of me or no?
And I was young. He was bent, legs straight. Lay down. You want to rub on top of me or no? And I go, I don't think. I looked at his hairy ass. Yeah. I saw the crack, and I was like, do I say yes? I was like, this is vaguely sexual, and I go, no, I don't think so. So then he gets up and he goes, all right, well, just hold on for a second. And he starts, I'm gonna show you something. And I go, all right. And he starts jerking off.
Oh, geez.
And I go, all right, I tickle my tutu. I used to rub it on the bed.
My tutu?
Yeah, that's what my mother called it. So I go, so he's wanking off, and that was the first time he goes, hold on, ready? And I go, yeah, and he comes.
On you?
He busted in your face?
No, not on my face. He just shoots. And I go, what the fuck? I go, what's that white? I couldn't believe seeing white stuff. It was the first time I saw somebody ejaculate.
Bro, hold on. Jesus. You were watching this dude jack off in the woods for a solid 4 minutes.
Hey, man,
And
it
you're
just came to
encouraging
me.
him? What were you saying to him?
I don't remember. It was so long ago. He goes,
Yeah,
he kept
Jim.
going. He
Yeah,
kept going,
get it, Jim.
hold on.
What do you call this, mister?
Yeah, hold on. He was like, watch this. Wait for it. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Wait for it.
Oh, yeah. And
What's
then he
gonna
goes,
happen?
boom. And then we went. And then we left. And we went and spied on those girls.
You hung out with him after that.
I did. I sure did.
You
yes.
watched a grown man jack off, bust near you, not on your face.
Yeah.
Then you went to go find chicks
That's
with him.
right.
So you know-
I thought about it because I thought that looks like
Pure
that looks
pressure.
like
The
a
guy be down there. You might be surprised.
Right.
They'd be like,
I was like, I
would
could
not be surprised.
I just
You might
thought
be
I could pretend that's a girl. I could rub against that and
You
pretend
can
it's a girl.
pretend it's a girl. What? Wait, hold on. It
was a crack.
Where the fuck? Are you revealing? Just like is this like a confession thing? Where, like you wanted to
there
let
cameras
a
on me?
little bit of.
What bothers me about the story is you watched him for several minutes jack off and ejaculate.
Sure did. I didn't know.
My guess would be that there were some parts of that story left out. But here he just tells a very strange story that he says he actually does this, or rather he thinks this daily. Really, really strange. Have a listen.
I think everybody does that.
I do something even. I do something even more ridiculous. I daily have a fantasy that I live in a part of the world where gangs are running everything, and they're terrorizing my village or my
That's
town.
Los Angeles, Brian.
Yep. And what I do then is I push a cart, a food cart. I'm humble, but I have a small gun with a silencer, and I kill all the bad guys quietly. And they're like, "Who the fuck is killing us, man? What the fuck is going on?" And I'm like, "Would you like another
Is this
hot
the
dog?
plot of The Professional?
Would you like some?" Yeah, that's literally how I.
The fuck?
I think about how I protect
You're
myself.
totally saying all of you. I feel like Eddie Bravo.
Well, that got weird. Calvin
Bravo
got
and I-
weird.
Okay, so if you thought it couldn't get any stranger, oh, you are mistaken. Brian slowly starts telling us another few stories here, and I really have trouble believing some of them. Perhaps you'll see things the same, or maybe it'll all make sense to you. Who knows? Let's test it. Let's tune in.
Yeah, I'm at USA. I'm a young man, and I'm dancing and with my buddy, and I meet this. I have a weakness for Latina girls, right? A little petite, curvy. I see this beautiful Latino girl. She's got this black ponytail. She's got that caramel skin. This cute little ass.
My dick is getting hard.
And I know. And this tight.
Oh, stop touching
and
it.
she's dancing. She's dancing. She's dancing. I'll start touching it.
He said stop.
Oh, stop touching it. Sorry.
So she's dancing.
And she's dancing, and she locks eyes with me with the eyes of a fighter. I mean, just looking at me, and I'm like, all right, well, that's my wife. That's my wife right there. I start dancing with her, and we're grinding, we're dancing. She smells like fucking apricots. I don't remember what she smells like, but for the story, she smells like fucking apricots. And I'm this. We start making out, and I mean bub slapping on the dance floor. And sometimes when you're that attracted, everything else melts away. You just see that one person.
Yeah.
I'm a little drunk, and I'm kissing her, and it's romantic. I mean, deep.
Now, see, for me, so far, I can't even say I believe it up to this point. He talks like someone who is telling you a story, but not an actual life event. He's describing it as it's very passionate and it's very romantic. A first kiss with somebody on a dance floor at a club. Okay? He describes the girl that he's looking at and is looking back at him as locking eyes with the eyes of a fighter. Okay, maybe it's just me. That's probably the last way I would describe that particular moment. Then to say that she smelled like apricots, following that up with, well, I don't remember what she smelled like, but we'll say for this story that it's apricots. Anyway,
I'm literally like, I'm gonna fuck this girl right here in this club, and
Right.
you know, so you cuff me, go fuck yourself. I was just in love. I'm gonna get her. This is my girlfriend. This
Right.
is my girlfriend forever. So I'm kissing and I'm making out, and I'm feeling her body. She's got these little tits. I'm like, these are small. It doesn't matter. Her waist, and she's so hard. And the ass was on another level. Yeah, she had a beautiful ass. And I reach down. And I go for, well, I grab a branch. I grab a fucking branch.
A branch.
That had been tucked under. And he goes, and pulls my hand away. And I immediately realize that was a cock. I've been deep kissing for 2 hours. So I'm definitely a little gay. I mean, deep kissing, and I just grabbed a cock. You ever felt
How did you not know?
You ever felt a cock in tights? How did I not know, dude? Because
can't know.
she
You can't know.
was taking hormones, obviously. Secondly, she was already like had that skin, Latino or Filipino, whatever she was, where she just didn't have hair on her body. She was petite. I keep saying she.
keep saying
She's such
she.
a girl.
Because he doesn't want to believe.
And you know,
Yeah.
but here's this. Here, ready? Here's why I'm a good guy. Here's why I'm a really fucking nice guy.
You let him suck your dick.
Nope. I looked in her eyes. She was so hurt. His eyes. He was so like, he was just like, please, you know, let this be. And I'm such a fucking, I felt so bad that I go back in to kiss her. I kiss him for another like 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And I go,
On the lips?
Oh, of course.
What?
I didn't want to be rude, you fuckers. Now listen, I'm not done. I'm not done.
yeah, that's
I'm
totally
not done.
gay.
Ready? I go like this. I go, oh, fuck. I have an ulcer.
would love to hear your comments on that one. I'm not sure I believe much of that story. Maybe some, but not all. So let me know what you thought.
I can't believe you went back in to kiss.
You gotta be. I didn't want to be rude.
No, yeah.
What? Wait a minute.
That would have been the opposite.
Some person pretended to be a girl and tricked you into kissing him and never even told you something that for a lot of guys would make them violent.
I know.
I would have gay bashed.
For a lot of guys.
I know.
Would you really?
I would have been mad if this person
For
tricked
a lot
me.
of guys, it's an experience
And
that they
that's-
didn't want to
I
have.
don't really give a
It's an
fuck.
experience. Okay, for you, but for a lot of guys, it's an experience that they don't want to have,
right.
and someone tricked them into doing it, and they could get
All
violent.
right, for the next story, it's about his two ex-girlfriends from about 10 years prior who somehow end up at a restaurant together. And like two girls usually do when they are talking about their mutual ex-boyfriend, they discuss it and decide to give him a call and invite him over for a threesome. So let's listen in.
We're drinking wine. I'm fucking getting them all plied up, talking about it. I could see the two of them, the two girls, are all over each other. And I'm like, oh, you want to use me as a bridge to have an experience with each other. How interesting. My two old girlfriends, who subsequently asked me to have children with them, by the way, just to use my sperm, which was very flattering, but I had to say no. But anyway, so...
Alrighty then. And then he calls his friend and has him meet him over there to make it four. You know, got to make it equal.
Okay, so I'm like that. Jimmy Burke goes, hey guys, let's go back to my, I call him the maestro. He goes, let's go back to my place. Let's go back to my place. I'll build a fire, got some weed. I'll make some fucking chocolate chip cookies. How's that sound? Weed, fireplace, chocolate chip cookies? They're like, yeah, okay, sounds good. We get to the place. He goes to the kitchen to start whipping up chocolate chip cookies. He's bringing out some weed. He goes to the kitchen, brings out weed, brings out a joint. By that time, I'm already naked on the bed with the girls. I'm already naked. And he's like, what the fuck is this? This is fucking, fuck the weed. This is fucking great. And I'm like, okay, I got my cock and one girl, I'm like working my balls. I'm like, looking at him. I go to Jimmy. I go, I'd rather be nowhere else in the world right now, bro. This is the place to be. This is the greatest experience of my life. Literally, like I'm living a porn right now, and I love them. They're both my girls. So Jimmy's like, let me take my clothes off. He looks like a red bumpy pickle, by the way. He's fucking hairless, got a piece on him, and I'm like, that's just not attractive to me, but whatever. So he's trying to get this girl's pants down. He's got a tongue literally that goes, literally he could catch fucking flies with that tongue. He's like one of those frogs. I'm like,
Okay, so I took out a little bit of the story, and basically we pick up after, for some reason, these two girls are now asking the two guys to do things together. We'll pick it up from there.
I don't like this. You guys need to do something together. I don't like this. And I look at Jimmy and we go, we don't do that. I don't do that. See, I don't fuck around with guys because it's not that I'm homophobic. I'm just not attracted to guys, and I definitely have a hard on right now, and so does my buddy. And there's no fucking. That's bad enough. We're about 2 feet away from each other. I'm not doing anything with my buddy.
And this is the girl that Jimmy was trying to eat out, right?
Yes.
Of course. So she's
Yes.
not liking Jimmy eating her out.
Right.
She's trying to
She
like.
didn't know him. She wanted really. She was more into the girl. She was into, you know. So she says, to Jimmy. She goes, and Jimmy can give a fuck. He doesn't give a shit. He's down to go. And if he has to fuck me in the ass to get to this girl, he's like this. I can see the look in his eyes, and he's fucking like, let's go. What the fuck do you need me to do? She goes, I want you guys to make out. And we had done a play. God. We wrote a sketch where we make out as a joke. And I go, no, I don't make out with guys. It's disgusting. Can't do it. I can't do it. I had to do it. There was a part.
You said you wrote a play that you guys could both make out with? I wrote this play just so we can make out.
Listen, I can't make out with dudes, but I did write this play where I make out with dudes, and I penned every letter. And it's unfortunate that it had to be that way, that I had to make out with a guy. But I mean, that's what I wrote.
Did I hear that? It's what I wrote. It's called Kissing a Boy. But the point is this.
It's called Why Is My Dick Hard? Right. Why am I crying?
Why?
Okay.
It's called Why Am I Crying? And why? Anyway, so before I can even do anything, Jimmy goes, I'll fucking kiss him. He goes, get over here, you fucking pussy. I go to Jim.
Oh my
He goes like,
God.
Pulls me away. He goes, you happy? She goes, yeah. Goes down on him like that. So now I'm back to my girl. And we're locked in and we're making out. And all of a sudden I feel the other girl's ass hand around my ass. She goes, you feel good, Brian? I'm like, yeah, it feels fucking good. No. And all of a sudden I feel like I'm not an ass play guy, to be honest with you, but I feel like a finger going in my mug whistle, if you will, if I can general. And then I feel what feels like a Greyhound bus in my ass. You understand? A Greyhound bus in my ass. To which I go, oh, like that. Exactly what I went, oh, like that. And I turn around like this. I'm stuck. All I can do is go. I arch my back. I turn. I go, oh, like that. And my buddy's got his thumb in my ass, and he goes like this. He goes, you fucking pussy.
Oh,
and
no.
close it out. You know what happened?
Bad man stuff.
Now let me explain why and how. She said to him, I'm not going to do any more. I will fuck you, but you have to stick your finger in his ass. You don't have the balls. And Jimmy goes, what? I don't have fucking...
Alrighty. I'm going to go take a shower now. So you might be surprised. Brian is not quite the same Brian I thought that I'd be listening to at this point in the video. Well, we've got one more story, and if you didn't really realize yet the flow, it's about to get even more weird still. So here we go.
Right, this reminds me of a story I experienced.
It's a story that Brian was telling me yesterday that was so good. I said, stop talking.
Yeah.
Stop talking and tell me this tomorrow.
Well, look.
You can't tell the names involved.
I can't tell the names. There was a celebrity involved.
There's a very significant celebrity.
Yeah.
When we were growing up, this celebrity was a big star.
Yes. But I'm driving to Venice. I get a call from a girl I used to bang who was a freak. Wonderful. I mean, a real Vegas pro. So she gives me a call, and she goes, what are you doing? And I go, I'm driving to Venice. She goes, get your ass up to this hotel. And it was let's just call it the Sheraton. She goes, get your ass to the Sheraton right now. We got 6 girls and only 2 cocks. We need you now.
Alright, so let me remind you that this is the same guy that moments ago was saying the idea of a pedophile sex ring was impossible. And if you are wondering why I am letting this play out, it's because I think we need to hear it, because either this guy is lying a lot, lying a little, or the entire story is true. And I think only hearing it out will give us a clearer picture of exactly who this man is and his connection, if any, to some types of behavior that he was earlier calling impossible. So, let this story conclude.
But they've probably not lived the kind of sexual deviancy that I have gone through, And so I just feel that. They just seem like wholesome, good people, that don't have just this deep, dark matter living inside their head. And so I got up and told this story that I'm about to tell you guys about, essentially my experience in a fucking orgy. And
what made you want to tell this?
I just was like, I fucking want to tell the truth about who I really am. I just felt like going up and going, hey, these are really cute stories, you guys. Now let me tell you what a fucking deviant I really am.
But you didn't think they were cute stories. And so they're telling their stories, and for whatever reason, you decided to take it down pervert lane and tell a story that you never even told me.
I've never told anybody because, it's just like, I was like, I want to tell something that's a little outrageous because I don't want any secrets in my fucking life. I just want to be fucking out there, and I don't give a fuck. I don't care what other people think. I care what my friends think, and my friends all know exactly who the fuck I am. All my friends know who I am.
There's so much freedom in that.
But there's always freedom in that. I'm not good at keeping a facade up. So I tell this story. So, phone rings again. Where the fuck are you?
So while this is going on, you're basically like a junkie that someone's saying, "Come on, let's do some blow."
I'm not basically like a junkie. I am a junkie. All right. There's no difference.
It is, but that feeling when you're about to do something really deviant is junkie.
My heart's beating fast,
Oh, yeah.
and I can't
Sweaty
get it out of my
hands.
mind. I keep going back to it.
Yeah.
I keep trying to put it out of my mind, and I'm losing, man. I go up to the suite. I get met at the door by my girl. She's wearing a mask, and she gives me a porcelain doll mask to put on. So I go, oh. And then she gives me a strip of paper with the rules of the game, which is that this is a birthday girl, and and I am fucking, the only rule is I can't hit or spit. I'm like, okay. I wasn't planning on hitting and spitting these girls. I'm gonna fuck them. You know?
Whoa! Is this stuff written down? Is it not printed?
It's
is it written?
Typed on a very neat strip of paper.
Wow.
So this is well organized.
So everyone has a sheet.
I walk in, and I go and I see fucking 4 of the hottest girls I've ever seen. One girl's getting banged on the bed by some muscular dude, and then there's a dude who's kind of just standing off the side, not doing anything, with like a shaved chest. And I'm like, I don't like that guy. He's weird. He fucking looks all bloated. He's just like been lifting a lot of weights and never did a sport in his life. I'm like, whatever, shaved chest, orange. He was orange with a shaved chest and some weird mask. I was like, all right. Then I look at myself.
Everyone's naked.
They're going at it, and I go, I'm gonna go. I'm not a porn star. When a girl as hot as blowing me with a mask on, and I'm totally anonymous with a mask on my face, I'm fucking gonna come. And plus, I gotta come because I got an audition tomorrow, so I want to get in and out. So I'm like, oh, and I go, I'm gonna fucking, you keep doing it, I'm gonna come. And the guy goes, and I hear, you're gonna come? And I look over, and it's a guy. I'm like, I think I recognize that guy. I know him from somewhere, but whatever. He goes, hold on. Shoot, and a video camera comes out, and it's right on the girl. And I'm like, oh, really? All right, I guess this is what it's like to do porn. My knees lock up, and which, by the way, I never locked up.
In her mouth, in her face, where?
In her mouth, my friend. Yeah.
And the husband is filming this.
He films that. And and then I hope I don't ever have to do a Disney show because I'm fucked. I'm fucked.
This is all fiction.
This is all fiction, but this is part of my fictional story that I'm doing.
Okay, so it's a on stage one man show.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So now I by the way, I'm speaking. This actually happened to a friend, and I'm speaking I'm telling the story. This is what happened.
Okay, we've got enough disclaimers.
Yeah, I'm just telling.
We got like 3 of them now.
Yeah, this happened to my friend. So I'm like, oh, and I go, I'm gonna fucking, you keep doing it, I'm gonna come. And the guy goes, and I hear, you're gonna come? And I look over, and it's a guy. I'm like, I think I recognize that guy. I know him from somewhere, but whatever. He goes, hold on. Shoot, and a video camera comes out, and it's right on the girl. And I'm like, oh, really? All right, I guess this is what it's like to do porn. My knees lock up, and which, by the way, I never locked up.
In her mouth, in her face, where?
In her mouth, my friend. Yeah.
And the husband is filming this.
He films that, pushes me down on the bed, and she gets on top of me. So as I'm being taken care of by this beautiful girl, now I'm being worked on my back and trying my hardest not to lose it, because she's so beautiful. And so all of a sudden, at this point, the celebrity, who I now recognize because he's drunk and the mask is crooked on his face. So it's like, I'm like, well, I see your face. All right, well, there you are. How you doing? And he goes, let me get you. You know, he wants to sandwich her. He wants to go an inch south.
So he wants to, while she's on top of you, he wants to stick it in her ass.
Yes.
Oh.
So she turns to him.
Your balls are going to touch. There's no way around that.
The whole thing's a disaster, right? So
Right.
she looks back and she says to him, something like, you know, she does this like silent kind of like language, like, no, I don't want to do that right now. And he's like, come on. And there's a debate going on. So finally she's like, she gets back to me. And by the way, we're connected. We're making love at this point, okay?
Yeah, your dick's in her vagina and his dick's in her butthole.
Well, he tries, but he can't get in.
How many times does his dick touch yours?
Never. I mean, if it did, it doesn't matter because I wouldn't have felt it anyway. I don't care. I'm not squeamish. There, I said it.
Really?
Well, I don't know. I'm too into this girl. I'm into this girl. Well, okay, so he's got a fungus on his balls. I don't know. I wasn't even thinking, dude. I was just like, this is an experience. I'm already done.
Okay.
I'm already fucked. So he can't get in, and he goes, what the fuck? I can't get in. And she turns around and goes, don't fucking blame me. I told you I didn't want to do it. And they start having a fight about not being able to get in her ass as I'm having sex with her. And they're having a fight, and I'm thinking to myself, I look back and I'm like, this is the beginning of the end in this relationship. This is a weird thing to fight about. There's another issue like that, you know, you fucking like, yeah, that's whatever, I get that, but they're swingers. So he can't get in. They have this fight, and then he kind of storms off, and she kind of goes back to me, and we do our thing. And so now. I can't believe this is like the most popular podcast, and there goes my reputation, by the way. And so now it comes time for me she wants me to finish off in a porn fashion, which would be, again, in her mouth. And so I go, okay. And so now we're going to do the whole money shot thing. And it's been a long time and I just lose it, right away again. And as I'm, coming, I see Mr. Celebrity come running around with the camera, and he comes around and he goes, oh, what the, no, oh, fuck, honey, why'd you let him come so fast? I want to film it. And she goes, what am I supposed to do? Stick my finger in his dick? Don't be an asshole. I don't have any control of it. And now they get an argument about that. And as their argument, I'm like, all right, thank you so much. I throw out my fucking pen and I run the fuck out of there. And
I need to know who this is.
And by the way, then they got divorced.
Have you ever seen that guy since then?
No.
All right, so what exactly did we just listen to? In a weird way, it kind of reminds me of the whole Milo situation on a small scale. If you've been paying any attention to the Milo controversy and his recent resignation from Breitbart, I have a personal problem with it. Just that Milo discussed being raped by a priest at the age of 13, where he describes it as a positive experience, and he discusses various Hollywood boat parties and house parties where he would not name any names of the people who actually ran these parties, where he said there was very young boys who were doing drugs and having unsafe sex. So that is the problem. He's not telling us, for instance, who this priest is that molested him, or who ran these parties, plural, where children were actually given drugs and raped. And is the priest that touched him still touching other boys? And what about these men that were raping these children? And why is he not helping them? So that's my issue with Milo. I understand that he made it work for him, and that's good, that he didn't let it get him down, but I also wish he'd realize that there are countless other boys, or very young boys, who he could really help by releasing the information that he has. He chose not to, and to address it in a nonchalant way, and I think he's paying the price for that now. But let's get back to Mr. Colin. So with Brian, I'm just a little bit confused, because when someone is involved with these Illuminati or elite sex parties, usually you're invited, you're part of a club, and I would guess that they would have the info on these other, lesser known pedophile rings, for example. I mean, what doesn't quite fit is his reaction to the idea of Pizzagate. I could see some sexually shy person maybe thinking that Pizzagate is impossible. I, for one, am having a hard time, however, imagining a guy who's wearing a porcelain mask getting filmed by a husband while his buddy has his thumb where the sun doesn't shine, and where you're making out with transvestites in see-through booths, that kind of person in Hollywood doesn't know anything about pedophile rings, has never heard of it. I mean, we're talking about to the point where he thinks it's impossible, that it shouldn't even be researched, it shouldn't even be discussed. It's a fake story. To me, I'm having a hard time believing that. I think that his reaction tells me something else. Do I know what? No. But let's look into some of these things that are going on elsewhere in that crazy world. Let's look at Bill Maher. Bill Maher is actually supposed to be a member of one of these skull and crossbones style secret society sex parties, where recently an agent was able to sneak through, and as soon as she saw him with a sea of beautiful women, she went up to him and asked if he was a Leo, since he was wearing a lion pendant around his neck. And he said, no, they make me wear this stupid thing because I'm a member. He replied as stroking the back of his date, a pretty younger woman in a short black leather dress, said the agent. Also, Bill Maher has made several comments on his show before that certainly don't seem in line with the values that most people hold. Let's watch him here on his show and tell me if you think your values align with his.
The cover, Mary Kay Letourneau, the teacher from Seattle, who is in jail because she is in love. That's how I view it. I admit that it's unorthodox. She is 35. The boy is 14. He was younger when they started. But the big story this week. Has he been bar mitzvahed? Have I?
No, is he?
Oh. Okay. But she is pregnant again. That was the story this week. With the second child by this boy. So basically they're having a family, and they're keeping the mother in jail because she won't conform to what society feels should be the perfect American family.
Yeah, it's perfect. My dad's 14 years older than me.
Absolutely sickening.
What
Here
is
is a woman who's over 20 years older, and she raped this kid.
Raped
Well,
Come on.
she forced.
She
what?
forced? How do you know? And how
Well,
can
no,
you?
Well, how do you know that she didn't rape him?
How
How
can
do
a
you
woman
know that she
how-
didn't seduce him?
How can a woman rape a man?
I think that an older woman can manipulate a young kid, and I don't think it's really healthy. I don't think it's healthy for a kid who's going to be 14 with 2 kids out in the world. I think the children will grow up fairly damaged. I think that kid's going to grow up fairly damaged.
So you're on her side?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it sounds like Bill Maher has no issues with a 35-plus-year-old woman, a teacher, and her having sex with a 13-year-old boy because, as he put it, how can a woman rape a boy? Well, Bill, the boy is now 13 with 2 children, and if you don't realize that that boy will be 20 in 7 years, and perhaps he'll go looking elsewhere for probably somebody his age, considering he wasn't quite old enough to get into a relationship to start with, and wouldn't even have known what he was doing anyway. And so now he's going to leave a wife and a mother of his 2 kids stuck to raise them on her own. And even if he did stay, I'm not really sure you should be a father if you don't have a driver's license. So Bill Maher does strike me as someone who would be at these eyes wide shut type parties, and especially since this is not the only time that he's made questionable comments regarding this kind of behavior. He also said recently in a quote, Playboy asked him, "Are you saying teachers should be allowed to have sex with their 13-year-old students, as she did, and not go to jail?" And Mayer responded, "I think it's a little offbeat, but you know, I believe in the double standard. If a 28-year-old male teacher is screwing a 13-year-old girl, that's a crime. But with Deborah Lefevre, another teacher who had sex with a student, screwing her 14-year-old boy student, the crime is that we didn't get it on videotape. Was he being taken advantage of? I wish I had been taken advantage of like that. What a memory she gave him. I would think he's a champion among his friends. Are you kidding? Even with Michael Jackson." So it's comments like that that, show somebody's lack of understanding of what exactly you're saying there. So it wouldn't shock me at all if Bill was seen wearing a porcelain mask and sleeping with girls that are barely old enough to buy a lottery scratcher. And back to Brian Callen, it's time to see what else we can find that might help us figure out what exactly is going on with the way that he reacted towards Pizzagate. Well, let's look at his father. So, wouldn't it be interesting if Brian Callen's dad was a bigwig somewhere with some possible pull? Well, that certainly looks like it is the case. His father is Michael A. Callen, and he looks like he graduated from Georgetown with a Master of Science in Foreign Service, an MSFS. He started his career with Citibank in New York in August of 1965. After a year of training, he took up his first overseas assignment in Manila in 1966. Then he moved to India in 1967, managing several divisions in Bombay and Calcutta. In 1972, he assumed overall responsibility for the bank's business in Lebanon and Jordan and Syria, while continuing to supervise the training center. He then went on to Pakistan, so he's definitely getting around. In 1978, he moved to Saudi Arabia as a senior officer for Citibank's business in the Middle East. From 1982 to 84, he was the head of all money market and foreign exchange trading for all of Citibank in North America as the bank's treasurer. During that time, Citibank gained significant market share. In October 85, he was appointed as the group head for all of Citicorp's business banking activity in all of North America, and at the time that was the largest of any financial institution in the United States. In 1993, he was approached by the largest commercial bank in the Middle East, the National Commercial Bank of Saudi Arabia, to assume the effective position of CEO and revive the bank's fortunes. Enticed by the challenge of reviving a failed entity, he moved to Jeddah in April 1993, where he remained until the middle of 1997. In 1997, he was engaged in a number of consulting relationships with troubled banks in Australia, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. His work and that of the team in which he forged usually involves restructuring of the bank's wholesale strategy and a training of all its staff. After teaching several workshops and seminars in 2001 at Georgetown University's Master of Science in Foreign Service program, he has undertaken to develop and teach several seminars starting in September 2002, but continues to maintain international consulting relationships. He's also a board member at several different entities and organizations. The AMBAC Financial Group, the board member and chairman of the audit committee at the Intervest Bancorp in New York, also the Woori Financial Group, also the Grameen USA, also the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies at Georgetown University, and the big one, he is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations from 1990 until present, which means he's one of the lifetime members of the Council of Foreign Relations. So let's talk about them. And so we'll be looking now at the Council on Foreign Relations. And just recently they started a program in 2008 that was supposed to last for 5 years that was called the International Institution and Global Governance, which actually aimed to identify the institutional requirements for the effective multilateral cooperation in the 21st century. So this has been in design for years, and the controversy that surrounds it has been basically the subject of debates over sovereignty, as well as the subject of numerous conspiracy theories. That is due primarily to the number of high-ranking government officials, along with world business leaders and prominent media figures in its membership, and we're going to go through a list of some of those in a second, and a large number of aspects of American foreign policy that its members have been involved with. Echoing the most common accusation, the paleo-conservative John Birch Society claims that the CFR is absolutely guilty of conspiring with others to build the one world government. So if you've ever wondered why the United States is trending ever more rapidly towards the loss of its sovereignty and its absorption into a one world socialist government that will be overseen by the world's international bankers, the New World Order, well, you just need to look at the Council of Foreign Relations. That'll give you much food for thought. From its earliest days, the CFR and its membership have taken a dim view of America and have unswervingly promoted a one-world socialist government. By exposing the activities of the CFR, which is important for any researcher, we can get rid of the most dangerous enemy, and that is the so-called establishment. You may have heard it called the secret cabal, the backroom government, the black ops. Basically, it is the group that rules the United States from behind the scenes. It's basically a group of like-minded, unelected elitists, and has been formulating America's policies, prescribing its direction, and staffing the administrations of every president since Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and that was in 1933. A quote was said that consistency has never been the mark of stupidity, so if our leaders were merely stupid, they would occasionally make a mistake in our favor, which of course does not happen, and therefore it is pretty obvious that our elected leaders aren't stupid or incompetent, that they are simply implementing the policies and directives of those who got them elected in the first place and those who advise them, otherwise known as the establishment. Sadly, at this stage of the game, the deck is pretty stacked against America, and the CFR currently holds all the cards. Mainly the strong sympathy and support for the USSR has come directly from the CFR. A lot of people still think that that's two different countries and that there's a Cold War and we were in a moon race and you name it, when in actuality we were helping USSR from the very beginning, especially since World War II. And given the potential geopolitical importance of that action, it gets pretty hard to swallow. Many things that they do are perfectly believable, such as the disconnect that still exists between the common people and the most powerful members of the establishment that truly rule and determine the internal and external policies of the external police, etc. And yes, the participation of the Council on Foreign Relations that few are aware of makes it without a doubt the shadow government. So the Council on Foreign Relations for years was headed by David Rockefeller, who absolutely wants a new world order, and therefore the destruction of the U.S. Constitution. One of the early council members, James Warburg, said to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, "We shall have world government whether or not you like it, by conquest or consent." So they've had this plan from their very beginnings. Now let's look at some of the names, besides, of course, of Brian Callen's dad, Michael A. Callen, that are members at the CFR. So what I'm going to do is read some of these just so you get a better idea of who these members are. You've got Robert E. Rubin, who's the former U.S. Secretary of the Treasury. He's also a high-level executive at Goldman Sachs, and he served on the board for Citigroup. He also served as President Clinton's assistant on economic policy. You've got David Rubenstein, who's the current vice chairman, co-founder, and managing director of the Carlyle Group. He's also a regent at Smithsonian Institution, a vice chairman of the board for Duke University, and president of the Economic Club of Washington. We have Alan S. Blinder. He is the Princeton University and vice chairman of the Federal Reserve Board from 94 to 96, and a member of President Clinton's original Council on Economic Advisors. We have Mary Boyes. She was the general counsel for the U.S. Civil Aeronautics Board, also vice president of CBS, assistant director of the White House Domestic Policy Staff, and a counsel to the U.S. Senate Commerce Committee. We also have R. Nicholas Burns. He was a U.S. ambassador to NATO for President George W. Bush and to Greece for President Clinton. We have David Cote, chairman and chief executive officer of Honeywell. Honeywell, of course, the one company that makes the gyroscope correction device. Check that out on Globebusters to hear more about that. Lawrence D. Fink is chairman and chief executive officer of BlackRock. Stephen Friedman is the chairman of Stone Point Capital. Friedman served 2002 to 2004 as assistant to President George Bush for economic policy and as director of the National Economic Council. He's also chairman of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board and the Intelligence Oversight Board. He's also with Goldman Sachs and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and on the board of trustees at Columbia University. We have Timothy Geithner, who is the president of Warburg Pincus. He also is the United States Secretary of the Treasury. We have J. Tomlinson Hill, who was a vice president. He later joined Lehman Brothers as a partner, where he was the head of their investment banking division. We also have Susan Hockfield, who is the 16th president of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. For other important board members, we're going to move on. We've got Colin Powell, who's a former four-star general. We've got Margaret Warner, the senior correspondent for PBS and the Wall Street Journal. We have Vin Weber, who was a co-chairman and partner in the Great Escape Attempt. We've got Peter Ackerman, who is the member of the Executive Council for the International Institute for Strategic Studies. Madeleine Albright, who currently serves as the U.S. Defense Department Defense Policy Board. Tom Brokaw, special correspondent to NBC News and member of the Intelligence Advisory Board under President George W. Bush, member of the Economic Recovery Advisory Board under President Bush. And so, if you'd like, you can go through the rest of it. I'll leave a link in the description. There's a lot more names, and all the way down till you get to people like Maurice Greenberg and David Rockefeller, and even more, Ann Fudge, Leslie Geib, Thomas Glosher. So lots to learn there about the Council on Foreign Relations, and now it's just about figuring out what that has to do with Brian. Let's continue. And also, if you go to the Wikipedia page, you can find this kind of mind map, which gives you an idea of how everything is spread out. Really fascinating stuff to see. Up at the top, you can see Boeing, which is a branch off of Fannie Mae, off Fleming, off Eastman Kodak, off Morgan Stanley. You can drop down from the Council on Foreign Relations and see the individual people like George Soros, Richard Haas, Richard Solomon. Over off to the right, you can see Raytheon, Citigroup. You can see Clinton cabinet members. You can see Harvard. You can see Ford. In the upper right, you can see Walt Disney and Staples and Starwood Hotels. Technologies to the upper left, and in the lower left, we've got the California Institute of Technology, Berkshire Hathaway, Pitney Bowes, Bristol Myers Squibb. So as you can see, they've got their tentacles pretty much wrapped around all of it. We can also go back and look at some of the members that are no longer with the commission, usually due to screwing up, and they may secretly hold a spot in the background, but the CFR trilateral pedophile Jeffrey Epstein's corporate philanthropy is tied to transhumanist neo-eugenics. There were the known sex scandals, but before that, he was better known for his financial prowess, but also for his extensive funding of the biotechnological and evolutionary science. With his bankster riches, he founded the Jeffrey Epstein VI Foundation. He was a former CFR and Trilateral Commission member who also sat on the board of Harvard's Mind, Brain, and Behavior Committee. Furthermore, he has been actively involved in the Theoretical Biology Initiative at the Institute for the Advanced Study at Princeton. And the scope of Epstein's various science projects spans research into genetics, neuroscience, robotics, computer science, and artificial intelligence. And altogether, the convergence of these scientific fields compromises an interdisciplinary science known as transhumanism, the artificial perfection of human evolution through humankind's merger with technology. So that's what I think they're going to try and sell us. And just to continue a little bit on the whole idea of Pizzagate, you got to be careful out there and make sure you check what's going on. Back in 2011, Andrew Breitbart, who's now dead, sent a tweet that says, "How Prague guru John Podesta isn't household name as world-class underage sex slave op cover-upper defending unspeakable dregs escapes me." So it looks like that may have gotten him taken out. So you got to be careful, but you also got to recognize when something like Pizzagate is true, or there's at least enough information that we should have FBI and CIA digging through everything that they have. And what we're looking at here is James Alefantis standing with some patrons next to his sign, "We Stand with Comet." And for those that think this is a fake news story and has been investigated and debunked, that's pretty sad. The saddest part is that the man here with James Alefantis is Washington, D.C. Police Chief Peter Newsham. So imagine that buddy-buddy relationship. You think they're going to expose anything if found, or will they never even look? And so we can all thank D.C. Police Chief Peter Newsham. Thanks, Peter. Another interesting point for someone like Brian Callen, who wants to pretend that he thinks it couldn't possibly exist. All you got to do is take a look at the Google Trends and look at Pizzagate versus fake news. They both happened at the identical same time. That was because once the elite were found out to be doing what they're doing, they needed anything they could to discount it as another conspiracy theory, and that's why they brought to the table the idea of fake news, which has gone on ever since. We all know what the real fake news is. Another interesting point that needs making is if you do a little bit of research, you'll see this guy Arun Rao, R-A-O. He is the Chief Southern Division United States Attorney's Office for the District of Maryland. And so with the district attorney, we've got somebody here who is in charge of the area where Comet Pizza is. It's technically in Washington, D.C., but is practically on the border of Chevy Chase, Maryland, which is Rao's jurisdiction. And guess what sort of crimes his office is responsible for prosecuting? Violent crime prosecution priorities in Greenbelt, including using federal racketeering, conspiracy, and firearms statutes to disrupt violent gangs and reduce gang activity. Also, the Greenbelt prosecutors investigate and prosecute significant public corruption and fraud cases. Public corruption cases involve state and local government officials and employees on the many different federal agencies located in the Southern Division. Like the major crime section in Baltimore, the Greenbelt office prosecutes a wide array of other federal offenses, including child pornography, bank robberies, immigration violations, and counterfeiting. The Southern Division also handles thousands of misdemeanor cases that occur on areas of exclusive federal jurisdiction, such as Baltimore-Washington Parkway, the National Institute of Health, and military bases. So Comet Pizza is adjacent to Rao's jurisdiction, and Rao is the chief executive of an office which is responsible for investigating and prosecuting child pornography cases. What are the odds that this guy, who happens to be friends with such an obvious pedophile like his bizarre posts, and yet the thought never crossed his mind to take a look? Arun Rao is probably a pedo ring asset in the Department of Justice. We need to investigate this much, much deeper. If you're still not convinced, you can go ahead and read some old papers or the Old Globe from 1981, where somebody came forward, convicted San Francisco Madam Brandy Baldwin, revealed how she supplied prostitutes and entertainment for members of the exclusive Bohemian Grove. I provided girls for camp where Reagan elite loved to frolic. So this has been going on for a long time. They're not going to go down easy. This is what they like to do. They're sick in the head. One of the often attractions over at Comet Pizza is a band called Sex Stains, and this is one of their music videos. Just wanted to show you this to you real quick. you can see the kind of people we're dealing with. These little girls dressed in little girls' clothes, or sitting on the ground with a half shirt painting on a wall like that girl. Absolutely, those people do not want to be doing that. They've been mind controlled. They look like silly gooses with their eyeballs and their everything else that they're doing and their pedophilia symbology. It is disgusting. We're now going to listen to a short interview from John Podesta. Listen to the ums and uhs all over this.
Were culminated in the so-called Comet Pizza episode, in which a guy I know who volunteered to cook at a fundraiser for Hillary, who runs a pizzeria, upscale pizzeria in Washington, D.C., was accused, along with myself, my brother, and others, of running a child sex ring out of the pizza parlor. Mainstream media debunked that instantly.
I still have some questions about that, by the way.
But you can't pull that back. And that ended up with a guy from North Carolina, if I remember right, getting a gun, driving to Washington to do a self-investigation of what was going on in the basement of the pizzeria. I don't think the pizzeria had a basement, by the way, and firing his weapon. So for the employees there, for James Alefantis, who was the proprietor, for people on in the community, this is a horrifying episode. Sure. But it's very hard to pull this stuff back. And Trump peddles it. His people peddle it. Bannon peddles it. Breitbart peddles it. He still calls Alex Jones and talks to him, and the Infowars conspiracy theories. Sandy Hook didn't happen. It was all made up to try to take your guns away. All that stuff exists. You don't see it. You don't feel it if you're largely living in reality and in a mainstream media world. But it's undermining our democracy, and I think that the companies themselves, they've taken some steps. They have a lot of responsibility.
Companies like Facebook,
Google, etc.
Right.
To do what they can to essentially not enhance this, not to create a ecosystem where the fake news it rose up, undermining our democracy. It's undermining those democracies, and the Russians know how to play this game. So they did it with. They intervene directly by the use of bot farms, etc. And I think that I'm not I don't know what technical fix I'm asking for, but I think the companies really need to.
A right-wing white nationalist site. It's one thing, but Infowars is a crazy person site that has theories of all kinds of nuttiness, like
really push the common
yes, the pizza thing, and Sandy Hook didn't happen, right? Other things, and he boasts about the fact that this was one of the keys to Trump winning, was that he found these alternative, quote, news outlets that he established a great bond with, and that's someone who was very happy that Donald Trump was elected president. Thinks that's.
Hopefully, it won't be too long until Podesta joins the list of those who have already been arrested just this year. I believe the number is at 1,500 in the first month alone of 2017. And on the screen now, you can find a list of some of those rescues and arrests. And if you notice there, Podesta seemed to just describe Alefantis as a person who volunteered to cook for an event. However, on this document here, you can see Alefantis often visited the White House, which I guess is something that you would do for some reason if you volunteered to cook. You'd have to go to the White House and talk to the president at midnight on a few nights. It makes sense. Here we see a book with the children all holding masks like Eyes Wide Shut, and pizza on the table, and of course pizza adds to 33, but I'm sure you already knew that. Here we have an Instagram post from Victoria Lynn Rice. She writes, "Pan makes me think of @Jimmy Comet," and Jimmy Comet says that's me, and Brian Bakers says @Jimmy Comet makes me think of Pandemonium, because they think they are very funny. Of course, Pan is the goat god, or Satan, or the devil, or whatever you want to call him. And sticking with Victoria Lynn Rice again, we notice that she's got this image of her living room, it looks like, or downstairs lobby, whatever you want to call it. And there's a ton of butterflies all over on the back wall. Most people know what that signifies. We also see the horns, and we see the message down there from Shadow9483. Would you be inclined for an offering, Monarch? Again, we'll go with another Instagram post from Victoria Lynn Rice, since we know that she is Jimmy Comet's friend. And we'll notice that on this wall, in this strange bedroom with cats, is a terrible painting of what looks like some terrible beast that says between its legs, "Devil said no God," and a bunch of other nonsense written all over it. So these are good quality people here at that support Comet Pizza. Next, we're looking at one of the images from the band, and we will notice right there the symbol for the pedophilia. They say they made a post saying they had no idea that that's what it stood for, so I guess they like to dress up in little kids' clothing and look ridiculous in their music videos, and we're just supposed to buy that. Sure. For example, this picture here, which clearly shows the pedophilia symbol, and a adult dressed like a baby in baby clothes. That's normal then. We're supposed to believe that this is part of their punk band. If you want to believe that, go right ahead. One particular question that needs asking is, how sick are these people? Obviously, we know they must be really sick, but let me show you a Super Bowl ad to show you just how absolutely disgusting they are.
What do I tell my daughter? Do I tell her that her grandpa's worth more than her grandma? That her dad is worth more than her mom? Do I tell her that despite her education, her drive, her skills, her intelligence, she will automatically be valued as less than every man she ever meets?
So, somebody had sent me this ad and told me that it was the Hampstead Children, and I took a close look, and it certainly looks a lot like Elisa, but I wasn't able to make that call on my own. So I did contact Ella and Abraham, and they did return my message and said that they absolutely believe that that is Elisa. And so you can take a look here. I did put that picture next to it. Again, we don't have a lot of pictures of Elisa, and all these were taken 2.5 years ago, so she would have grown up 2.5 years. I see markings in the teeth that look identical, and then I overlaid this, her mouth and nose, over the top of the image of the girl that's riding the go-kart, and it certainly looks like it to me that they are parading these children around at Super Bowl as if there's some sort of trophy. And that is absolutely despicable if it is true. Again, I wasn't going to say anything because I wasn't able to make that claim on my own. But after talking to Ella and Abraham, they both said that they have already seen the ad, and yes, that it is Elisa. This is her grandparents here, and they have also chimed in and said they also think it's her. And of course, this is their demon excuse for a father. Of course, you might want to still consider it a hoax, which makes absolutely no sense in anyone's world, but there's people out there who are claiming it is a hoax and that I'm promoting a hoax. Then again, those same people are promoting Donald Trump, Tom Brady, and Elvis as females, and Joan Rivers, Jennifer Aniston, and Angelina Jolie as males. So, lucky for you, you are free to believe whatever you want.
Can I add a piece to that? As a former police officer of 20 years, I had the opportunity of actually sitting with a mother in this case for 3 hours. I can absolutely tell you, with my experience of interrogation over a 20-year period, as a former detective sergeant, she was speaking 110% truth. I know there's been no investigation, there's been no proper police statement taken from this woman because of the way she's been harassed. I also know that we have child abuse in this country to epidemic levels. I was on Saturday sitting with a former MP from the Home Office who categorically stated to me that we've got now about 1 in 10 children being abused. And we have a police force that's in denial, and it's not you. I know that. It comes from senior levels. We now need to recognise this and start acting on it to change the ethos of what is wrecking so many children's lives and costing so much deprivation and degradation to the way we live on this planet. I'm really putting that out there clearly. Everybody knows it. We've got to start acting on it.
So for me, it gets quite easy. You can take one look at these folks, and do they look like you and me? They look like us? I don't think so. I think they are much different, and I think that they're inbred, and that they are no different than the Rothschilds, and they have spawned numerous illegitimate children through pedophilia, through incest, and through general nonsense, and are part of the issue with the world the way it is. Another issue is the way our government handles people who have been caught doing the worst possible crimes. Like recently in an FBI sting, they found over 30,000 people in 132 countries that had accessed child pornography and images of children being abused even as young as 3. And out of these 30,000 people, 5,200 were citizens of the United States. That's 17%. And even worse than that, 264 were Pentagon employees who were never prosecuted. And even more than that were caught who were working at NASA. These government employees purchased these images, and more than that, they purchased subscriptions to sites providing this kind of content using credit cards and PayPal while on government computers. And here's the worst part. We'll never find out the names of any of these people. We'll never even find out if they were fired from their jobs or on what level they were punished, because all that information has been redacted, and we'll never know the identity of people because of a government program that says these people's privacy must be upheld. Well, in my opinion, you lose your right to privacy when you've accessed pictures and videos of children being abused. Because here's the thing. In order to get to this kind of content, these people are not stumbling across it in their internet searches. You actually have to go out and seek this kind of content. Therefore, is the FBI or the CIA sitting down with each of these government employees and asking the important questions, like, have you ever been touched? Do you know anyone who has been touched? Do you think about touching minors? Do you think about sex with minors? Were the images what enticed you? Or did you actually go and seek out those images? 264 of these people worked for the Pentagon. Some worked for the NSA and had top security clearance. Many worked for NASA. The question is, what happened to these employees? Do they still work there? And if so, how can we be expecting them to stop doing what they're doing? If there were 5,200 citizens of the United States that were found to be accessing this kind of content, how come only a handful were prosecuted? I can understand if out of the 5,200, only 5,100 were prosecuted. And even in that case, I would hope that the 100 that weren't had some sort of deal or some sort of bargain where they gave up information about others who had orchestrated this kind of content in exchange for their privacy to be withheld, but they would have some sort of punishment, like their internet being watched for 10 years. Something to do with stopping this kind of activity. These children need our help. They need the agencies to do their jobs to end this abuse. And when we hear that government employees are responsible for purchasing content like this, how are they getting away with it? What are we going to do to stop it? Alright, and to close it out, I'll address the Brian Callen situation. To start, Brian almost lost his mind over the Pizzagate story, but let's think. Brian is someone who has been a part of the Hollywood scene for many, many years. He also said that Pizzagate had been debunked, but it's not a singular event that you could debunk, considering it is a pedophile ring. It would be virtually impossible to debunk it. It has plenty of merit that it should be further researched, so kudos to those of you out there who are still looking into it. You clearly said, Brian, that it was a fake news piece, yet you clearly said later, when talking about Dennis Haggart, there will always be pedophiles in that group. Do you see the problem there? Don't you think you are normalizing pedophilia? Why will there always be pedophiles in that group? And what group? What exactly did you mean? Are you sure that you know of nobody that is hurting children? None of your connections in Hollywood, your porcelain-masked celeb sex parties, no knowledge of any children being abused. Your connections in other countries, your father and his CFR connections. So your father has been a member of the Council of Foreign Relations and a major bank executive for many years. And the Council on Foreign Relations has been accused of being the New World Order for 20 plus years, if not more. And you've said you don't know what the New World Order is. Are you being honest here?
You know what Agenda 21 is?
I don't, Eddie, but I want you to tell me why.
You know what the New World Order is?
I don't, but...
Do you know what... Of course you don't.
Because you think a small group of people are controlling everything? Like the world economy or the oil markets? How? Do you know how oil is priced? Do you know how oil is priced, Joe?
Man, you know, so you are so far on the other goddamn side.
Dare I say, too far. You work in Hollywood, and your dad has been a major player for 40 years in Washington, D.C. and across the world. He has rubbed elbows with David Rockefeller. David Rockefeller, Chairman of the Council of the Americas, Chairman of the Americas Society, Founder of the Forum of the Americas, Chairman of the Institute for International Economics, and Founder of the Trilateral Commission. Let's listen to former Vice President Dick Cheney, who was once Director of the Council on Foreign Relations, a relationship that he hid during his congressional career, followed by Hillary Clinton.
It's good to be back at the Council on Foreign Relations. As Pete mentioned, I've been a member for a long time and was actually a director for some period of time. I never mentioned that when I was campaigning for re-election back home in Wyoming.
Thank you very much, Richard, and I am delighted to be here in these new headquarters. I have been often to, I guess, the mothership in New York City, but it's good to have an outpost of the council right here down the street from the State Department. We get a lot of advice from the council, so this will mean I won't have as far to go to be told what we should be doing and how.
And so is this why you were so triggered? You hate Trump, so that means you obviously backed Hillary. And do you know the companies involved with the Council on Foreign Relations? Of course, the founding companies of the CFR include Citibank, where your dad has been a top executive for years, and other founding members include Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Chevron, ExxonMobil, Goldman Sachs, Google, Hess, JP Morgan and Chase and Company, Moody's, Morgan Stanley, NASDAQ, Pepsi, and Shell Oil. And then we can add all those that fall under the President's Circle. And forgive me if I pronounce some of these wrong, but we're talking American Express, Arconic, BlackRock, Blackstone, Bloomberg, BP, Bridgewater Associates, Coca-Cola, Credit Suisse, Dell Inc., Deutsche Bank, Eni, Generali, Gillette Sciences, Glenview, Golden Tree, Infor, Johnson Controls, Kohlberg, Kravis & Roberts, Lasered, Lockheed, MasterCard, McKinsey & Company, MetLife, Newmont Mining Corporation, Noble Energy, Pearson, PGIM, Pitney Bowes, Reliance Industries, S&P Global, Soros, Standard Chartered Bank, Thomson Reuters, Toyota, United Technologies Corporation, and Veritas Capital Fund Management. To list all the CFR affiliates would take me all day, so I'll just name a couple of the obvious ones: Airbus Group, AT&T, Boeing, Booz Allen Hamilton, Facebook, FedEx, General Electric, IBM, Johnson & Johnson, Northrop Grumman, PayPal, Pfizer, Time Warner Inc., Walmart, Wells Fargo, and Western Union. just to name a few. So many people might see what I'm saying as being paranoid or possibly a symptom of mental illness, but when we cite source data, we are using the scientific method. It does not seem all of a sudden to apply to conspiracy theories. I'm going to paraphrase a paper written by W.E.B. on December 31st, 1995, and basically he says that 1,000 sources can be quoted, yet this will not convince the skeptics or the realists. It seems to me that the symptoms of mental illness are on their side, if they refuse to look at the evidence. There are none so blind as those who will not see. Or perhaps something more sinister is at work, such as a knowledge of the truth that does not want you to know. To be paranoid means to believe in delusions of danger and persecution. If the danger is real and the evidence is credible, then it cannot be delusional. To ignore the evidence and hope that it cannot be true is more an evidence of mental illness. The issue involves much more than a difference of philosophy or political viewpoint. We were taught that those who attempted to abolish our national sovereignty and to overthrow our constitutional government were committing acts of treason. Please judge for yourself if the group I'm about to discuss is guilty of such. If one group is effectively in control of national governments and multinational corporations, and they promote a world government through the control of media, foundational grants, and education, and controls and guides the issues of the day, then they control most options available. The Council on Foreign Relations and the financial powers behind it have done all these things and promote the New World Order as they have for over 70 years. The CFR is the promotional arm of the ruling elite in the United States of America. Most influential politicians, academics, and media personalities are members, and it uses its influence to infiltrate the New World Order into American life. Its experts write scholarly pieces to be used in decision-making, the academics expound on the wisdom of a united world, and the media members disseminate this message. That the ruling power elite does indeed control the U.S. government behind the scenes has been attested to by many Americans in a position to know. Felix Frankfurter, Justice of the Supreme Court from 1939 to 1962, said, "The real rulers in Washington are invisible and exercise power from behind the scenes." In a letter to an associate dated November 21, 1933, President Franklin Roosevelt wrote, "The real truth of the matter is, as you and I both know, that a financial element in the large centers has owned the government ever since the days of Andrew Jackson." February 23, 1954, Senator William Jenner warned in a speech, "Outwardly, we have a constitutional government. We have operating within our government and political system another body representing another form of government, a bureaucratic elite which believes our Constitution is outmoded." Baron M.A. Rothschild wrote, "Give me control over a nation's currency, and I care not who makes the laws." All that is needed to effectively control a government is to have control over that nation's money, a central bank with a monopoly over the supply of money and credit. This has been done in Western Europe with the creation of privately owned central banks such as the Bank of England. Georgetown professor Dr. Carroll Quigley, who is Bill Clinton's mentor while he was at Georgetown, wrote about the goals of the investment bankers who control central banks. Nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole, controlled in a feudalist fashion by the central banks of the world acting in concert by secret agreements arrived at in frequent private meetings and conferences. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "If the American people allow private banks to control the issuance of their currency, first by inflation and then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of all their property until their children will wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered." Does that not describe the exact situation in America today? Though unconstitutional, as only Congress shall have the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof, which is Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, the Federal Reserve Act was passed in December 1913, ostensibly to stabilize the economy and prevent further panic, but as Lindbergh warned Congress, this act establishes the most gigantic trust on earth. The invisible government, by the money power, proven to exist by the money trust investigation, will be legalized. The Great Depression and numerous recessions later, it is obvious that the Federal Reserve produces inflation and federal debt whenever it desires, but never stability. Congressman Louis McFadden, House Committee on Banking and Currency Chairman from 1920 to 1931, stated, When the Federal Reserve Act was passed, the people of these United States did not perceive that a world banking system was being set up here, a superstate controlled by international bankers and industrialists acting together to enslave the world. Every effort has been made by the Fed to conceal its powers, but the truth is, the Fed has usurped the government. Although called federal, the Federal Reserve System is privately owned by member banks, makes its own policies, and is not subject to oversight by Congress or the President. As the overseer and supplier of reserves, the Fed gave banks access to public funds, which enhanced their lending capacity. Peter Kershaw in Economic Solutions lists the 10 major shareholders of the Federal Reserve Bank System as Rothschild, Lazard Brothers, Israel Saif, Kuhn and Loeb Company, Warburg, Lehman Brothers, Goldman & Sachs, and Rockefeller. That most, if not all, of these families just happen to be Jewish, you can judge the significance of that yourself. The balance of stock is owned by major commercial member banks. According to Devi Kidd, Why a Bankrupt America, the Federal Reserve pays the Bureau of Engraving and Printing approximately $23 for each 1,000 notes printed. 10,000 $100 notes, which would be $1 million, would thus cost the Federal Reserve $230. They then secure a pledge of collateral equal to the face value from the U.S. government. The collateral is our land, labor, and our assets, collected by their agents, the IRS. By authorizing the Fed to regulate and create money, and thus inflation, Congress gave private banks power to create profits at will. A national income tax was declared unconstitutional in 1895 by the Supreme Court, so a constitutional amendment was proposed in Congress by none other than Senator Nelson Aldrich. As presented to the American people, it seemed reasonable enough: income tax on only 1% of income under $20,000, with the assurance that it would never increase. Since it was graduated, the tax would soak the rich, but the rich had other plans, already devising a method protecting their wealth. As described by Gary Allen in his 1976 book, The Rockefeller File, by the time the 16th Amendment had been approved by the states, the Rockefeller Foundation was in full operation, about the same time that Judge Kennesaw Landis was ordering the breakup of Standard Oil monopoly. John D. not only avoided taxes by creating 4 great tax-exempt foundations, he used them as repositories for his divested interests, made his assets non-taxable so that they might be passed down through generations without estate and gift taxes. Each year, the Rockefellers can dump up to half their incomes into their pet foundations and deduct the donations from their income tax. Exchanging ownership for control of wealth, foundations are also a handy means of promoting interests that benefit the wealthy. Millions of foundational dollars have been donated to causes such as promoting the use of drugs while degrading preventative medicine. Since many drugs are made from coal tar derivatives, both oil companies and drug manufacturing concerns, many Rockefeller owned and controlled, are the main beneficiaries. With the means to loan enormous sums to the government in the way of the Federal Reserve, a method to repay the debt in the way of income tax, and an escape from taxation for the wealthy in the way of foundations, all that remained was an excuse to borrow money. By some happy coincidence, in 1914, World War I began, and after American participation, the national debt rose from $1 billion to $25 billion. World War I produced both a large national debt and huge profits for those who had backed President Wilson. The Rockefellers were reported to have earned over $200 million during the war. Wilson backer Cleveland Dodge sold munitions to the Allies, while J.P. Morgan loaned them hundreds of millions with the protection of U.S. entry into the war. The main obstacle was that the Americans did not want any involvement in European wars. Some kind of incident, such as the explosion of the battleship Maine, which provoked the Spanish-American War, would have to be provided as provocation. This occurred when the Lusitania, carrying 128 Americans on board, was sunk by a German submarine, and anti-German sentiment was aroused. When war was declared, U.S. propaganda portrayed all Germans as Huns and fanged serpents, and all Americans opposing the war as traitors. What was not revealed at the time, however, was that the Lusitania was transporting war munitions to England, making it a legitimate target for the Germans. Even so, they had taken out large ads in the New York papers asking that Americans not take passage on that ship, because they were going to blow it up. The evidence seems to point to a deliberate plan to have the ship sunk by the Germans. Colin Simpson, author of the Lusitania, wrote that Winston Churchill, head of the British Admiralty during the war, had ordered a report to predict the political impact if a passenger ship carrying Americans was sunk. Pat Robertson, in The New World Order, states that Colonel House, along with other internationalists, realized that America would not join any scheme for world government without a change in public opinion. After a series of meetings, it was decided that an Institute of International Affairs, with 2 branches, in the United States and England, would be formed. The British branch became known as the Royal Institute of International Affairs, with leadership provided by members of the Round Table, and begun in the late 1800s by Cecil Rhodes. The Round Table aimed to federate the English-speaking peoples of the world and to bring it under their rule. The Council on Foreign Relations was incorporated as the American branch in New York on July 29, 1921. The founding president of the CFR was John W. Davis, J.P. Morgan's personal attorney, while the vice president was Paul Cravath, also representing the Morgan interests. Professor Carroll Quigley characterized the CFR as a front group for J.P. Morgan and Company in association with the very small American Round Table Group. Over time, Morgan's influence was lost to the Rockefellers, who found that the one world government fit their philosophy of business quite well. As John D. Rockefeller Sr. had said, competition is a sin, and global monopoly fit their needs as they grew internationally. As corporations went international, national monopolies could no longer protect their interests. What was needed was a one-world system of government controlled from behind the scenes. This had been the plan since the time of Colonel House, and to implement it, it was necessary to weaken the U.S. politically and economically. Curtis Dahl, son-in-law of FDR, and a syndicate manager for Lehman Brothers, an investment firm, was on the New York Stock Exchange floor the day of the crash. In his book, FDR, My Exploited Father-in-Law, he states, "It was the calculated shearing of the public by the world money powers triggered by the planned sudden shortage of call money in the New York Stock Exchange." Dahl wrote of his father-in-law, "Most of his thoughts, his political ammunition, were carefully manufactured for him in advance by the CFR, the One World Money Group. Brilliantly, he exploded that prepared ammunition in the middle of an unsuspecting target, the American people, and thus paid off and retained his internationalist political support." Taking America off the gold standard in 1934, FDR opened the way to unrestrained money supply expansion, decades of inflation, and credit revenues for banks. FDR's most remembered program, the New Deal, could only be financed through heavy borrowing. In effect, those who had caused the Depression loaned America the money to recover from it. Since 1934, almost every United States Secretary of State has been a CFR member, and all Secretaries of War or Defense, from Henry L. Stimson through Richard Cheney. The CIA has been under CFR control almost continuously since its creation, starting with Allen Dulles, founding member of the CFR and brother of Secretary of State under President Eisenhower, John Foster Dulles. Allen Dulles had been at the Paris Peace Conference, joined the CFR in 1926, and later became its president. John Foster Dulles had been one of Woodrow Wilson's young protégés at Paris Peace Conference. A founding member of the CFR, he was an in-law of the Rockefellers, chairman of the board of the Rockefeller Foundation, and board chairman of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Since that time, nearly all presidential candidates have been CFR members. President Truman, who was not a member, was advised by a group of quote-unquote wise men, all 6 of whom were CFR members according to Gary Allen. In 1960, CFR Kennedy, who was probably killed because he had the courage not to go along with all their plans, and CFR Nixon. In 1964, the GOP stunned the establishment by nominating its candidate over Nelson Rockefeller. Rockefeller and the CFR wing proceeded to picture Barry Goldwater as a dangerous radical. In 1968, CFR Nixon ran against CFR Humphrey. The 1972 contest featured CFR Nixon versus CFR McGovern. CFR candidates for president include George McGovern, Walter Mondale, Edmund Muskie, John Anderson, and Lloyd Benson. In 1976, we had Jimmy Carter, who was a member of the Trilateral Commission, created by David Rockefeller, and CFR member Zbigniew Brzezinski, with the goal of economic linkage between Japan, Europe, and the United States. We have also had, though his name strangely disappears from the membership list in 1979, CFR director from 77 to 79, George Bush, and last but not least, CFR member Bill Clinton. They have all promoted the New World Order, controlled by the United Nations. The problem is that the present United Nations organization is actually the creation of the CFR and is housed on land in Manhattan donated to it by the family of then chairman of the CFR, David Rockefeller. Since that time, the CFR and its friends in the mass media, largely controlled by the CFR members such as Katharine Graham of the Washington Post and Henry Luce of Time Life, foundations and political groups have lobbied consistently to grant the United Nations more authority and more power. Bush and the Gulf War were but one of the latest calls for the New World Order. Admiral Chester Ward, a member of CFR for over a decade, became one of its harshest critics, revealing its inner workings in a 1975 book, Kissinger on the Couch. In it he states the most powerful cliques in these elitist groups have one objective in common. They want to bring about the surrender of the sovereignty and the national independence of the United States of America. Most members are one world government ideologists whose long-term goals were officially summed up in September 1961 in a State Department document number 7277 adopted by the Nixon administration. It states the elimination of all armed forces and armaments except those needed to maintain internal order within the states and to furnish the United Nations with peace forces by the time it, the UN global government, would be so strong no nation could challenge it. Within the CFR there exists a much smaller group but more powerful, made up of Wall Street international bankers and their key agents. Primarily, they want the world banking monopoly from whatever power ends up in control of the global government. This CFR faction is headed by the Rockefeller brothers, according to Ward. What must be remembered is this is not some lunatic fringe group. These are members of one of the most powerful private organizations in the world, the people who determine the control of American economic, social, political, and military policy. Members' influence and control extends to leaders in academia, public service, business, and the media, according to the CFR 1993 annual report. These people are not affiliated with the government, they are the government in effect. CFR members in the mass media, education, and entertainment push their propaganda of humanism and world brotherhood. We should all live in peace under a world government and forget about such selfish things as nationalities and patriotism. We can solve our own problems. We don't need God or morals or values. It's all relative anyway, right? Because if we actually had some moral character and values, we might be able to discern those people that are actually doing evil. The Bible says that the love of money is the root of all evil. These people are evil because they love money and power, and greed drives them to do anything to achieve their goals. They have lost all morality and conscience and believe such concepts, as well as our Constitution, are outdated. What we're dealing with here is simply insanity. To have more wealth than can possibly be spent, and still it's never enough. They have to control governments, start wars, conspire to rule the world, lest the common people wake up to how they gain their wealth, take it away from them, and then demand that they pay the price for their crimes. That is why they constantly pit us against one another, with diversity or affirmative action and other programs, black against white, men against women, rural against urban, ranchers against environmentalists, and on, lest we look in their direction. We the people are held to a much higher standard. If we threaten the president or a public official, we are charged with a crime. Yet the one world gang can threaten the Constitution and the liberties of we the people, the sovereign rulers of this nation, and nothing is said or done. Perhaps they do not fear what men can do to them. They believe they have everything arranged, and their power and wealth will prevail in this world. However, those among them who have sworn an oath before God to uphold and defend the Constitution, the President, members of Congress, and the military, may find one day that they do indeed have something to fear. These private citizens have access to government officials and policymakers as often as they wish, yet the results of their meetings can only be given to other government officials, corporate officers, or law partners. Participants are forbidden to transmit an attributed statement to any public medium, such as newspapers or TV, where there is a risk that it will be promptly and widely circulated or published, as the annual report puts it. Should not our public officials be forbidden to meet in secret with private groups? Public officials should only be allowed to discuss public business and policy in a public forum. The public. Remember us? There is much more to say about this group and their plans for America. Gary Allen in the Rockefeller file states that they are behind the many regional government plans which would abolish city, county, and state lines, leaving us at the mercy of federal bureaucrats, and behind the push for land use controls. They want federal control of everything, since they intend, eventually, to control the federal government. There are also many allegations of involvement in gun running, drug smuggling, prostitution, and sex slaves, and the many mysterious assassinations and suicides of witnesses and others who get too close to the truth. So Brian, the New World Order is the Council on Foreign Relations, where your dad has been a member for 37 years. You've never heard of the New World Order. Is that you really being honest? Well, let me be honest. When somebody acts like they know nothing, and when somebody acts like they're uninformed, when someone has problems with people looking into or talking about pedophiles in the highest places, yet also says,
There are always going to be pedophiles in that
Right,
group.
but instead of...
I have to stop and ask, why will there always be pedophiles in that group? And what group are you talking about? How can you in one breath say that, and in the next breath say this?
It was proven to be a horseshit story. If you buy into it, the joke is on you. I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Wow.
I'm telling you.
Did you hear what? That's very unbelievable. It's incredible.
So,
When I find someone who pushes propaganda and laughs at others who are questioning the things that don't make sense, I have to ask, is this person just blind to reality?
Dude, you're always on the official story side, dude. You're one of those guys. You're one of those guys. You're always.
I read credible news sources.
Washington
credible,
Post,
not just
CNN,
Washington Post. I mean, not just
New York Times.
No, I read
New York
The
Times,
Economist, which is
Washington
the
Post.
second oldest magazine in the world.
You read all the propaganda.
Do you
read
know
all the bullshit.
Do you know how those editorial boards work?
You study the bullshit.
Eddie, do you know how those editorial boards work? Do you know?
But if that person makes their living in Hollywood and has access to information but refuses to look, and has a family member who is an international banker and a member of the CFR rubbing elbows with Rockefeller and Rothschild, and then tells others that the Pizzagate story is fake, while laughing under their breath as they say things like,
Do you really think that the entire editorial board of the New York Times or the Economist or the Wall Street Journal, where people who run the country and the world get their information, do you think all those people are lying, getting together, and being conspiratorial to give us fake news? And for what? Is that really what you believe?
and when you have two of your so-called friends with Eddie Bravo and Joe Rogan telling you there's something to this story, rather than look into it, you simply keep screaming and crying that the story is fake, you don't want to talk about it, while refusing to look into things like...
You know what Agenda 21 is?
I don't, Eddie, but I want you to tell me why.
You know what the New World Order is?
I don't, but...
Do you know what... Of course you don't.
Because you think a small group of people are controlling everything? Like the world economy or the oil markets? How? Do you know how oil is priced? Do you know how oil is priced, Joe?
Man, you know,
so
you are so far on the other goddamn side.
I think you're too far on the other side. There are people out there who are doing real, independent research who are going to give you much more truth than The Economist. If The Economist, or the New York Times, or the Washington Post were tools of an elite government, do you think those publications would tell you? Is that what you think? Is that how it really works? Because you're claiming you have the truth, and anything else, and anything on YouTube, does not. Conspiracy of Silence has evidence and facts throughout. Yet you scream, fake, fake, fake. And
you're talking about some shit you've never seen. Just because it's on YouTube, it's like, it's not real, it's on YouTube. You don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. You're talking about some documentary there. You believe that documentary. You don't even know what it is. You believe that? How could you believe that?
I'm
You don't even know what it is. You've never even seen it.
And so now, since your buddy has asked you to take a look at Conspiracy of Silence, and because you now see what the New World Order is, do you have a different opinion of Pizzagate and those researching it? Or will you still be triggered the next time someone brings it up? Well, I have questions and would be happy to ask you if you'd be so kind to answer them. I can come on your show, or you can come on mine. But children are being harmed by men in high places. Do you agree that we should try and stop it? You were molested. You know the feeling. You can see what it can do to children. Yet you say...
There are always going to be pedophiles in that
Right,
group.
And with that attitude, you might be right. I say that there should never be pedophiles who have been given positions of power in our government. That's horseshit. And lastly, I am somebody who has done research who thinks differently than you.
there are some researchers who do, for whatever reason, think the
they're
world's
not
flat.
researchers, they're idiots. But yeah,
I hear you,
Yeah.
but they're
Okay.
scientists.
Yeah, but if Kyrie Irving believes that, then that part of his brain is dead, and he's a
I
dummy.
hear you.
So if I'm an idiot and my brain is dead, this goes out to both you, Brendan and Brian. Have me on your show so we can talk about it. Or I'll bring my facts, and then you can tell me how all the science proves my facts wrong. To everyone, be kind and don't hurt children. And if you know of children being hurt, don't keep it inside. Say something. Help them. This has been Jaronism. Till next time. Peace.